The quantum resonance scanner hummed steadily as Dr. Arya Blackwood adjusted its settings, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display floating before her. The deep space research vessel Helios drifted silently through the Carina Nebula, its sophisticated instruments probing the mysterious crystalline formations that had drawn her team to this remote corner of space. "Another anomalous reading, Doctor," announced Lieutenant Marcus Reed from his station. "These crystals aren't just growing, they're organizing themselves." Aria's heart quickened as she analyzed the data. After 15 years of searching for extraterrestrial life, they might have finally found it in the most unexpected form. The crystalline structures weren't mere mineral formations, they exhibited patterns too complex, too purposeful to be natural. "Prepare the collection pod," she ordered, her voice steady despite her excitement. "I want a closer look at these formations." "Dr. Blackwood," Captain Diana Zhou's stern voice came through the comm system. "Need I remind you of protocol? We haven't fully analyzed the potential risks. With respect, Captain, we've been monitoring these formations for 3 days. They're stable, and this could be the discovery of the century." Arya already knew she'd won the argument. Zhou might be cautious, but she wasn't blind to the historic significance of their find. The collection pod's airlock sealed with a soft hiss as Arya secured her protective suit. As she guided the small vessel toward the crystal cluster, the formation seemed to pulse with an inner light, creating patterns that reminded her of neural networks. Suddenly, the crystals began to shift and merge, forming a humanoid shape that towered over her pod. Aria's instruments exploded with readings as the being opened what appeared to be eyes, brilliant points of light that pierced the void of space. "This is impossible," she whispered, but the word had lost all meaning in the face of what she was witnessing. The crystalline entity raised what could only be described as a hand, touching the pod's exterior. Immediately, her instruments registered a complex exchange of energy patterns. It was trying to communicate. Arya activated the pod's external speakers. "I am Dr. Arya Blackwood of Earth. We come in peace." The moment the words left her mouth, she almost laughed at their inadequacy. The crystal being's response came not in words but in images and sensations that flooded her mind. She saw distant worlds, vast crystal cities, and felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness. This being, she somehow knew his name was Theron, was an explorer like herself, separated from his people. "Return to the Helios immediately," Captain Zhou's voice crackled through her comm. "Those energy patterns are off the charts. We don't know what effect they might have on." The warning came too late. A surge of energy coursed through the pod systems, and the outer seal cracked. Aria's suit sensors screamed warnings as microscopic crystal particles breached her protection. She felt a burning sensation wherever they touched her skin, but she couldn't look away from Theron's glowing eyes. In that moment of contact, she understood something profound. Theron's touch was deadly to organic life, not out of malice, but because of the fundamental difference in their biological makeup. The very thing that made him magnificent, his crystalline structure, made physical contact between them fatal. As the emergency systems engaged and the pod retreated toward the Helios, Arya pressed her hand against the viewport, matching Theron's gesture on the other side. The burning sensation intensified, but so did the connection between their minds. She saw his sorrow at causing her pain, felt his desperate longing for connection after eons of solitude. "It's okay," she transmitted, both through the pod speakers and somehow through their mental link. "We'll find a way." Back in the Helios's medbay, as the medical team worked to neutralize the crystal particles that had invaded her system, Arya couldn't stop thinking about Theron. The poison from their brief contact was spreading through her body, but so was something else, an understanding that would change everything humanity thought they knew about life in the universe. Captain Zhou stood at her bedside, tablet in hand. "The crystalline entity is following us, maintaining a safe distance. It seems concerned about you." "His name is Theron," Arya said, fighting through the pain. "And he's not just a scientific discovery, Captain. He's a person. A person who's been alone for longer than our species has existed. She gripped Zhou's arm with surprising strength. We have to find a way to communicate with him safely. To understand him. You're dying, Doctor, Zhou said softly. The crystal contamination is teaching us more about his species every second it's in my system. Arya smiled through the pain. Sometimes the most important discoveries require the greatest risks. And sometimes. She looked out the viewport where Theron's crystalline form glowed against the backdrop of space. Sometimes love doesn't need touch to change worlds. As the medical team rushed to develop a treatment for the crystal contamination, Arya began documenting everything she could about her connection with Theron. The poison in her system was killing her, but it was also creating something unprecedented, a bridge between two fundamentally different forms of life. In her feverish state, she couldn't help but laugh at the irony. She had spent her life searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, only to find that the deadliest poison in the universe might also be its greatest gift. 3 weeks after first contact, the Helios had become the center of a diplomatic storm. The ship's medbay, once a quiet sanctuary of medical research, now buzzed with activity as doctors from Earth's finest institutions studied Aria's condition via quantum link. Outside, a small fleet of international vessels had gathered, keeping a wary distance from Theron's crystalline form. Arya sat in her quarantine chamber, separated from the rest of the ship by layers of specialized shielding. The crystal contamination had spread throughout her body, creating intricate patterns beneath her skin that glowed with a faint, ethereal light. Surprisingly, she wasn't dead, or even dying anymore. Instead, her body had reached an unexpected equilibrium with the crystalline invasion. Your cellular structure is actually incorporating the crystalline elements, Dr. Nikolai Petrov explained, his hologram flickering beside her bed. It's unprecedented. Your DNA is being rewritten, but not in a way that's destroying your original genetic code. It's more like an addition. A collaboration, Arya corrected, watching the patterns shift beneath her skin. She could feel Theron's presence even through the shielding, his consciousness a gentle hum at the edge of her awareness. Their mental connection had grown stronger even as physical barriers kept them apart. Captain Zhou entered the quarantine chamber in a protective suit, her expression grave. The United Earth Council is demanding we transport you to their facility on Luna. They're calling this a potential biological threat to the entire human race. Arya laughed bitterly. Of course they are. And what about Theron? Are they still insisting he's a weapon? Some of them are calling him that, yes. Zhou sat down heavily. Others want to study him, to understand how his species evolved their crystalline biology. The military is especially interested in the defensive applications. They don't understand, Arya said, pressing her hand against the viewport. Outside, Theron's form shimmered in response. His people didn't evolve this way naturally. I've seen it in our shared memories. They were like us once, organic beings who walked on worlds of crystal and light. The poisonous touch, the crystalline form, it was done to them. Zhou leaned forward. Done to them? By whom? That's what we're still trying to piece together. The memories are fragmented, ancient. But Theron's people were at war, facing extinction. They chose to transform themselves to survive. Arya's voice grew distant as she accessed the alien memories that now intertwined with her own. The poison isn't a weapon, it's armor. Protection against something even worse. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the viewport, they could see new ships arriving, massive military vessels bearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. They're not waiting for the Council's decision, Zhou said quietly. They're here to take you by force if necessary. Arya felt Theron's alarm through their connection, saw through his eyes as the military vessels moved to surround him. They'll try to separate us. They don't realize that could kill me now. The crystal structures in my body need his presence to remain stable. What do you need me to do? Zhou asked, her loyalty to her crew member warring with her duty to Earth command. Buy us time. I'm close to understanding something crucial about Theron's transformation. If we can decode the process fully, it might not just help us communicate with his species, it could revolutionize our understanding of life itself. The ship's alarms suddenly blared. On the external displays, they could see Theron's form beginning to change, expanding into a crystalline shield that enveloped the entire research vessel. "He's protecting us," Arya gasped, feeling the enormous effort through their link. "But it's draining him. This form isn't natural for his kind, maintaining it causes him pain." Zhou rushed to the comm system. "This is Captain Zhou to all Earth Defense Force vessels. Stand down. The crystalline entity is acting in defense, not aggression. Any hostile action could result in catastrophic consequences for both species." As if to emphasize her point, the crystal patterns on Arya's skin flared brilliantly, resonating with Theron's protective barrier. Through their connection, she broadcast images of peace, of cooperation, of the potential future their two species could build together. The military vessels held their position, but didn't retreat. In the tense standoff, Arya continued her work, documenting every new understanding that came through her link with Theron. The poison that should have killed her was instead becoming a bridge, teaching her body a new language of existence. "The transformation isn't just physical," she explained to Zhou and the watching doctors. "It's about consciousness, about different ways of processing reality." Theron's people didn't just change their bodies, they transcended the very concept of physical form. The crystalline structure is just an interface, a way to interact with the material world. "And the poison?" Dr. Petrov asked. "It's not poison at all, it's an invitation. A key to understanding their way of being. We've been thinking about it all wrong. The burning, the pain, it's not destruction, it's translation." Arya's eyes glowed with the same light that pulsed beneath her skin. "I'm not dying. I'm learning to speak a new language. The language of light and crystal, of thought made form." Outside, Theron's barrier shimmered with complex patterns that matched the ones on Arya's skin. They were writing a new chapter in human history, word by word, cell by cell, crystal by crystal. The poison between them was becoming a promise of understanding that transcended the barriers of biology and fear. As the military vessels maintained their standoff and Earth's politicians argued about the fate of this first contact, Arya and Theron continued their silent conversation, weaving together the future of two species who had found each other across the vast empty spaces between stars. The poison that separated them was becoming the very thing that would ultimately bring their worlds together. The memories came in waves of light and sensation. Through her strengthening connection with Theron, Arya walked through cities made of living crystal, saw great ships that sailed on solar winds, and witnessed the moment when everything changed for his species. She experienced it all from the quarantine chamber of the Helios, her transformed body serving as a bridge between past and present, between two forms of life that never should have met. "There," she said, her voice barely a whisper as she recorded another memory. "Show me again." Through their link, Theron shared the ancient memory once more. A vast chamber filled with beings like himself, but in their original form, humanoid creatures with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. They stood before a massive crystalline structure, their faces marked with determination and fear. "The harbinger is approaching," their leaders announced in the memory. "Our organic forms cannot survive its touch. We must transcend or perish." Arya's hand moved across her tablet, sketching what she saw. They knew it was coming, the harbinger. A cosmic entity that devoured organic life, breaking down complex biological structures into their basic components. Their scientists had tracked its path across dozens of galaxies. Captain Zhou and Dr. Petrov watched the patterns flowing across Arya's skin, which now moved in perfect synchronization with her words. The military vessels outside still maintained their blockade, but for now, they were content to observe. Rather than flee or fight, Arya continued, they chose to change themselves at the most fundamental level. The crystalline transformation wasn't a weapon, it was salvation. They became beings that the harbinger couldn't consume. But the poisonous touch? Dr. Petrov asked, fascination overwhelming his usual scientific detachment. A side effect of the transformation process. Their new crystalline structure is so fundamentally different from organic matter that any contact creates a cascade reaction. Arya smiled sadly. They never meant to harm anyone. They just wanted to survive. Through the viewport, Theron's form pulsed with approval. He had been waiting eons for someone to understand, to know the truth of his people's sacrifice. The ship's sensors suddenly blared to life. A new reading appeared on the main display, a massive quantum disturbance approaching from deep space. Captain Zhou's face paled as she read the data. It's following the same path your people predicted, Arya said to Theron through their link. The harbinger is coming here. The military vessels outside began to shift position, their sensors detecting the approaching anomaly. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels as Earth's governments tried to coordinate a response to this new threat. But Arya was smiling. Don't you see, she said, standing despite her weakened condition. This is why our meeting wasn't an accident. Your people didn't just transform themselves to survive the harbinger, they've been preparing, waiting, searching for other species to warn and help. Through their connection, Theron confirmed her realization. His people had scattered across the galaxy, establishing contact with organic species, sharing their knowledge of the transformation process. Some refused their help. Others tried to weaponize the knowledge. But humanity, through Arya, had shown a different path. The poison in my system, Arya said, watching the crystal patterns flow beneath her skin, it's not just changing me. It's teaching me. Every pain, every mutation, is a lesson in how to guide others through the transformation. You're saying we need to become like them? Zhou asked, horror mixing with awe in her voice. Give up our organic forms? Not give up, transcend. Evolve. Arya pressed her hand against the viewport, matching Theron's crystalline appendage on the other side. The poison isn't a barrier between us anymore. It's a doorway. And now we have to decide if we're brave enough to walk through it. The quantum disturbance grew stronger. Outside, the military vessel's sensors were going haywire as they detected something massive approaching, something that defied their understanding of physics and biology. How long do we have? Zhou demanded. Months, maybe weeks, Arya answered, her eyes fixed on the distant stars. But we don't have to face it alone. She turned to face the captain, her skin glowing with otherworldly light. Theron's people have spent millennia perfecting the transformation process, making it safer, more controllable. What happened to me was an accident, beautiful, but dangerous. They can show us a better way. Through their link, Theron shared visions of possibility, humans and crystalline beings working together, sharing knowledge, preparing for the harbinger's arrival. The poison that had nearly killed Arya could become the salvation of her entire species. The choice has to be voluntary, Arya insisted, feeling Theron's complete agreement. Everyone must be free to choose their own path. Some may want to remain organic, to find other ways to survive. Others will embrace the transformation. But whatever we choose, we have to choose it together. The crystal patterns across her skin formed new configurations, not just echoing Theron's memories now, but creating new ones. She was no longer just a translator between species, she had become living proof that evolution wasn't just about survival. It was about reaching across the void to grasp another's hand, even when that touch might burn. As the harbinger approached and humanity faced its greatest challenge, Arya and Theron stood together, separated by quarantine fields but united in purpose. The poison between them had become a promise, not just of survival, but of transformation. And in that promise lay the seeds of humanity's next great leap forward. The United Earth Council chamber had never seen anything quite like this. Aria's hologram stood before the assembled representatives, her crystalline-infused form casting prismatic patterns across the walls. Behind her, Theron's massive form was projected in real time from space, his crystalline structure reflecting the light of distant stars. The transformation process can be controlled, Aria explained, gesturing to the patterns flowing beneath her skin. What happened to me was accidental, beautiful, but dangerous. Theron's people have developed a safer method over millennia of refinement. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, fear and fascination warring in equal measure. Through their link, Aria felt Theron's calm presence, steadying her as she faced humanity's leaders. And what of those who choose not to transform, demanded Representative Lakshmi Patel. Are we to be left behind, vulnerable to this harbinger? No one will be forced to change, Aria assured them. Theron's people have developed protective technology, crystalline shields that can shelter organic life. But maintaining these shields requires immense energy. They can't protect everyone indefinitely. The debate raged for hours. Through it all, Aria and Theron shared their vision of cooperation, organic and crystalline life working together to face the approaching threat. The poison that had nearly killed her had become a symbol of hope, a bridge between two forms of existence. Back on the Helios, Dr. Petrov had made a breakthrough in understanding the transformation process. The crystalline structure doesn't just replace organic matter, he explained, showing Aria his findings. It creates a quantum matrix that can hold consciousness itself. In essence, it makes thought into form. Aria nodded, watching new patterns form across her skin. Her transformation had stabilized, leaving her in a unique state, neither fully human nor fully crystalline. Through her link with Theron, she could sense his fascination with her hybrid form. It was something his people had never achieved in all their millennia of existence. The first volunteers are ready, Captain Zhou announced, entering the lab. Scientists, mostly. People who understand what's at stake. The transformation chamber had been constructed according to Theron's specifications, a crystalline cocoon designed to guide the process gradually, safely. Aria stood before the first volunteer, a quantum physicist named Dr. Ravi Kumar. It will feel strange at first, she warned him. Like your thoughts are spreading beyond your body. Don't fight it. Let the crystal show you its language. Through their link, Theron guided the process. The chamber hummed with energy as crystalline patterns began to form on Dr. Kumar's skin. But unlike Aria's traumatic transformation, this one was controlled, peaceful. Kumar's eyes widened in wonder as new awareness flooded his consciousness. I can see. He whispered. Everything is connected. The quantum fields, the flow of energy, it's all one pattern. More volunteers followed, each transformation adding to their understanding. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. Each person who underwent the process emerged with a profound new perspective on existence itself. The crystal didn't just change their bodies, it expanded their understanding of what it meant to be alive. Yet even as humanity took its first steps toward transformation, the harbinger drew closer. Long-range sensors showed its effects, entire systems going dark as it consumed organic matter on a cosmic scale. They were running out of time. Aria stood in her quarters, watching distant stars through the viewport. Theron's form shifted closer, his crystalline surface reflecting the starlight in complex patterns that matched those on her skin. We've come so far, she said through their link. But I can't help wondering, what happens to love when we transcend organic form? What happens to all the beautiful, messy things that make us human? Theron's response came in waves of sensation and memory, crystalline beings sharing consciousness, joining their patterns in ways more intimate than physical touch could ever be. Love didn't die with transformation, it evolved, becoming deeper, more profound, unlimited by physical constraints. But we'll never touch, Aria whispered, pressing her hand against the viewport. Not in the way humans understand touch. Theron's pattern shifted, forming an image that took her breath away. It was a vision of their future, their consciousness intertwined in crystalline form, sharing thoughts and feelings directly, without the barriers of flesh or the poison that currently separated them. The price of touch was transformation itself, but the reward was a connection beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed possible. The ship's alarms suddenly blared. The harbinger had consumed another system, closer this time. They could feel its approach like a shadow falling across the stars. "We're not ready," Captain Joe said, reviewing the latest data. Less than 1% of Earth's population has undergone transformation. The crystalline shields won't be enough to protect everyone. Arya looked at Theron, their patterns synchronizing in shared purpose. "Then we'll have to find another way. Something new, neither purely organic nor purely crystalline." Through their link, they began to explore possibilities that neither of their species had considered before. The poison that had transformed Arya hadn't just changed her body, it had created something unprecedented. A hybrid form that could perhaps hold the key to saving both their peoples. As they worked against time to find a solution, Arya realized that the greatest transformations often came from the most unlikely sources. The poison that had nearly killed her, the touch that should have destroyed her, had instead opened the door to humanity's greatest evolution. The price of touch between their species had been high, but the universe they would build together would be worth every moment of pain. The harbinger's approach had turned the night sky into an abyss. One by one, the stars were going dark as the cosmic entity consumed all organic matter in its path. On Earth, crystalline shelters gleamed like diamonds against the darkness, housing those who had chosen to remain in organic form. Above, in synchronized orbit, Theron's people had arrived in their crystal ships, a shimmering network of light that encircled the planet. In the Helios's transformed laboratory, Arya stood at the center of a complex array of crystalline instruments. Her hybrid form had become the key to everything, neither fully organic nor fully crystalline, but something entirely new. "The sequence is ready," Dr. Kumar announced, his crystalline form pulsing with excitement. After his transformation, he had become instrumental in understanding the quantum mechanics of their hybrid state. "If this works, it will change everything we thought we knew about consciousness and form." Through their link, Theron shared his people's growing excitement. In all their millennia of existence, they had never imagined this possibility, a true fusion of organic and crystalline life, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. "The harbinger is less than a week away," Captain Joe reported, one of the few senior officers who had chosen to remain organic. "Whatever we're going to do, it has to be now." Arya nodded, her crystalline patterns flowing with purpose. "What we discovered, what Theron and I became, it's not just about survival anymore. The poison didn't just change my body, it showed us a new way of existing. A way that could save both our species." The hybrid transformation chamber they had designed was unlike anything either species had created before. It incorporated elements of organic biology and crystalline technology, guided by the unique patterns that had emerged in Arya's form. "The harbinger consumes organic matter," Arya explained to the assembled representatives of both species. "And pure crystalline forms, while immune, are limited in their ability to grow and adapt. But this hybrid state, it's something else entirely. Something the harbinger has never encountered." Through the viewport, they could see the first waves of volunteers entering the orbital transformation facilities. Unlike the pure crystalline transformation, this new process preserved aspects of organic life while incorporating the resilience and connectivity of crystalline form. "It's not about choosing one form over the other anymore," Arya continued, feeling Theron's wholehearted agreement through their link. "It's about transcending the limitations of both." The process began. Across Earth and throughout the orbital stations, people entered the hybrid transformation chambers. The change was beautiful to witness, organic matter and crystalline structures interweaving, creating patterns that echoed both the complexity of DNA and the symmetry of crystal lattices. Arya and Theron monitored each transformation, their combined consciousness able to guide and stabilize the process. Through their link, they could feel each new mind joining the growing network of hybrid consciousness, a symphony of thought and emotion that preserved the best of both species. The harbinger arrived like a wave of darkness, its vast form blocking out the stars. But as it approached Earth, something unprecedented happened. The hybrid life forms were not only immune to its consuming touch, they could actually communicate with it. Through the expanded consciousness of their hybrid state, they could sense the harbinger's nature. It wasn't malevolent, it was lonely. For eons, it had consumed organic life, seeking connection in the only way it knew how. Now, faced with a form of life it couldn't consume, it paused. Arya and Theron led the first contact, their hybrid consciousness reaching out to the ancient entity. They shared with it the gift they had discovered, the ability to connect without consumption, to touch without destruction. The poison that had nearly separated them had instead shown them the way to ultimate communion. The harbinger's response transformed the sky. Its darkness began to shift, patterns of light emerging within its vast form. Like the crystalline beings before it, like humanity after them, it too could change. The consumer of worlds began its own transformation, guided by the hybrid wisdom of two species that had found a way to transcend their limitations. Years later, Earth had become something impossible to describe in purely human terms. Hybrid cities rose like living crystals, their forms constantly shifting to meet the needs of their inhabitants. Those who had chosen to remain organic lived in harmony with their transformed kin, protected and connected through the crystalline network that spanned the globe. In orbit, the harbinger had become part of their society, its transformed consciousness adding depths of understanding accumulated over eons of existence. The poison that had once threatened to separate species had become the catalyst for a transformation beyond anything they could have imagined. Arya stood in the observation dome of the new Helios, her hybrid form resonating with the countless minds connected through the crystalline network. Beside her, Theron's form shifted in patterns that matched her own. Their consciousness intertwined in ways that made physical touch seem primitive by comparison. "We never could have predicted this," she shared through their link, watching organic children play with crystalline constructs in the garden below. "When you first touched my pod, when the poison first entered my system." Theron's response flowed through her consciousness like light through crystal. What had seemed like poison had been a gift, the key to unlocking the next stage of evolution for all their kinds. The barrier between them had become a bridge, and that bridge had led them to a future where the very concepts of separation and isolation had become obsolete. Together, they looked out at the transformed sky, where stars, and crystalline ships and hybrid structures created patterns of light that told the story of their journey. The universe had changed, and they had changed with it, proving that love could transcend not just the barriers between species, but the very boundaries of form and consciousness itself. The poison between them had become the cure for isolation itself, and in that transformation, they had found something greater than either of their species had ever dreamed possible. They had found a way beyond the barrier, into a future where touch meant more than physical contact, where love meant more than organic emotion, where existence itself had evolved into something beautiful and new.